Revenge with Karen.
The break room coffee tasted like it had been filtered through a gym sock that saw action in Desert Storm. But at 10:15 p.m. on a Tuesday, you stop caring about the bouquet and start praying for the caffeine to kickstart your heart. I've been the lead systems architect at Very Core Logistics for 9 years. That's a fancy title that basically means I'm the janitor for the internet. I clean up the digital vomit left behind by Ivy League MBAs who think the cloud is an actual fluffy place where data lives happily ever after. I was 3 days out from Project Onyx, a global integration launch that was supposed to automate our entire shipping grid. My eyes felt like they were packed with sand and broken glass. Speaking of broken things, if you enjoy watching a corporate train wreck unfold in real time, go ahead and smash that subscribe button and give this story a like. It helps the algorithm more than whiskey helps my insomnia. Thanks. I was running a simulation on the fail-safes, code I wrote back when my hair didn't have gray streaks and my liver was still optimistic. The office was that special kind of quiet you only get in skyscrapers at night. The hum of the AC, the distant wail of a siren, and the sound of my own soul slowly leaking out of my ears. I was in the zone, rewriting a legacy patch that looked like spaghetti code from 1998, when the glass door to my office slid open. It wasn't a knock. It was an invasion. Enter VP Bad Haircut. His name is actually Brad, but in my head, he's always been the haircut. Brad is one of those guys who fails upward so fast, he breaks the sound barrier. He smells like sandalwood and unearned confidence. He was wearing a suit that cost more than my first car. He had that smile plastered on, the one that says, "I'm about to ruin your life, but I'm going to use HR buzzwords to do it." "Becky," he said. "I hate being called Becky. It sounds like someone who bakes muffins and doesn't know how to kill a process tree in Linux. Burning the midnight oil? Love the hustle." The integration layer was desynchronizing, I said, not looking up from my monitors. I had 3 screens going, matrix of green and white text that would make a normal person have a seizure. "I'm patching the hole before the load test tomorrow. If I don't, the Asian markets will crash the system before lunch." Brad laughed. It was a dry, hollow sound like shaking a box of Tic Tacs. "See, that's exactly what we need to talk about. You're always in the weeds, Becky, always looking at the nuts and bolts." I finally spun my chair around. My spine cracked like a glow stick. "Brad, nuts and bolts are the only thing keeping this company from becoming a spirit Halloween store. What do you want?" He sat on the edge of my desk. He actually sat on my paperwork. The disrespect was so palpable I could taste it. "We've been reviewing the synergy of the IT department. With Onyx launching, we need agility. We need freshness. My niece, Tiffany, you met her, right? The digital innovation intern, one who asked me if the server room had good lighting for her day in the life TikTok." I asked, my voice flat. "Yeah, I met her. She's got vision," Brad said, his eyes dead behind his designer frames. "She thinks your protocols are heavy, cumbersome. She calls it legacy drag. We need to pivot to a more lean agile mindset." I blinked. Legacy drag? Brad, that drag is the firewall keeping Russian hackers from turning our logistics network into a Bitcoin mine. Held up a hand, a manicured hand. "We've decided to go in a different direction, Rebecca, effective immediately." The air left the room. It wasn't a gradual leak, it was a hull breach. "Excuse me, we're letting you go," he said, checking his Apple Watch like he had a dinner reservation to get to. "Severance is standard, 2 weeks, but we need you to vacate the premises now. Security is already on the way up." "You're firing me," I said, the words tasting like copper, 3 days before the biggest launch in company history. "Because your niece thinks my code isn't vibey enough. It's about culture fit," Brad said, standing up and smoothing his jacket. "You're too slow, Rebecca. You double-check everything. You build redundancies for redundancies. Tiffany, she moves fast. She breaks things to fix them. She's going to break the company," I whispered. My hands weren't shaking. That's the funny thing about rage, it steadies you. It turns your blood into ice water. "Larry will escort you out," Brad said, gesturing to the door where Larry, our night shift security guard, was standing. Larry looked like he wanted to vomit. He knew me. He knew I brought him donuts every Friday. He looked at his shoes. "I need to document the patch," I said, reaching for the keyboard. "Don't touch the equipment," Brad snapped. His voice lost the corporate sheen for a second. "Company property. Tiffany is taking over the lead at 8 a.m. Handle the integration." I stood up. I'm not a tall woman, but I've been told I have the presence of pissed-off badger. I grabbed my purse. I grabbed my pack of Marlboro Reds from the desk drawer, my one vice, usually reserved for the roof, but tonight I didn't care. Tiffany, I said, letting the name roll around my mouth like a curse word. The girl who thinks python is a type of snake at the zoo. She completed a 6-week boot camp, Brad said defensively. She's certified agile. Right, I said. I looked at my screens one last time. The cursor was blinking at the end of a command line that was the only thing holding the database synchronization together. Pending commit. I didn't press enter. I didn't save. I just turned off the monitor. You're making a mistake, Brad. A multi-million-dollar mistake. I'll take my chances with the future, he sneered. Now, please, you're making a scene. There was no one else in the office to see the scene, but in Brad's head, he was already rehearsing the story for the board. How he trimmed the fat. How he ushered in a new era of youth and vitality. I walked past Larry. It's okay, Larry, I said softly. Do your job. I'm sorry, Rebecca, Larry mumbled, his face red. I really am. It's not your fault the circus came to town, I told him. As I walked down the hallway, the fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, sound I usually ignored, but tonight it sounded like a countdown. I felt a strange sensation in my chest. It wasn't sadness. It wasn't even fear. It was the cold, hard realization that loyalty is a currency that has no exchange rate in the modern world. I had given this place 10 years of my life, my sanity, and the best cartilage in my knees. And they were trading me in for nepotism higher with a ring light and a live, laugh, love mousepad. Hit the elevator button. The arrow lit up, down. Too slow, I muttered to myself, lighting a cigarette right there in the hallway under the no smoking sign. We'll see about that. The elevator ride down felt like a descent into hell, if hell was paneled in brushed steel and smelled like lemon disinfectant. Larry stood in the corner, trying to make himself invisible. I didn't blame him. He was just a guy trying to pay for his kids' braces. He was the one carrying a cardboard box full of personal effects. A stapler, a framed photo of my dog, God rest his soul. He was the only male in my life who never lied to me, and a stress ball shaped like a grenade. When the doors opened on the ground floor, I expected to be ushered straight to the revolving door. But Brad, in his infinite wisdom, had forgotten that my parking pass was still on my desk. Larry, I need my pass, I said. I can't get my truck out of the garage. Unless you want me to ram the gate? Larry looked panicked. I can go get it, I'll go, I said. I left it right next to the server keys. We went back up. This time, the elevator opened to a different scene. The silence was gone. Music was blasting. Not good music. It was that repetitive, soulless electronic pop that sounds like a robot having a panic attack. And there, sitting at my desk in my ergonomic chair, was Tiffany. She looked like she had been assembled in a factory that makes influencers. Perfect hair, perfect nails, and a terrifying lack of awareness in her eyes. She had pushed my dual-monitor setup aside to make room for her laptop, which was covered in stickers. One of them said Girl Boss. Another said Coffee and Code. But what stopped my heart wasn't the stickers. It was what was on my main screen, the launch console. It was open. The command prompt I had abandoned was gone, placed by the shiny, GUI-based dashboard that the vendors sold us, the one I never used because it was as reliable as a chocolate teapot. Oh my God, is this Rebecca? Tiffany chirped, spinning around. She didn't look guilty. She looked like she was greeting a fan. Brad said you were leaving. Totally bummer energy, but hey, fresh starts, right? I stared at the screen over her shoulder. A red bar was pulsing in the corner. Database sharding, manual override. Tiffany, I said, my voice dangerously calm. What did you do to the shard protocols? She giggled. She actually giggled. Oh, that? It kept giving me these super annoying pop-ups about latency and integrity check. So I just turned off the notifications. It's running so much faster now. Look at the loading bar go, she pointed. The loading bar was indeed moving fast. It was racing toward 100%. My stomach dropped into my shoes. Hadn't just turned off notifications. She had disabled the load balancing inhibitors. She was essentially redlining a Ferrari engine in neutral while pouring sugar in the gas tank. That's not speed, I said, gripping my box of junk so hard the stress grenade deformed. That's a memory leak. You're flooding the cache. You're being so negative, she sighed, rolling her eyes. Brad said you were a warrior. Look, I'm just preparing the environment for tomorrow. Call it preheating the oven. You're not preheating the oven, I said. You're setting the kitchen on fire. Larry touched my arm. Rebecca, we have to go. I looked at Tiffany. She was already back on her phone, probably texting her friends about how she crushed her first late shift. She had no idea. She was sitting on a nuclear bomb and using the detonator as a fidget spinner. I calculated the timeline in my head. The cache would fill in about 8 minutes, and the database would try to write to a disk that was already locked. Then the transaction logs would corrupt. Then, Onyx would die, not a quiet death, a screaming, burning, public death. I turned around. I didn't say another word to her. There was no point explaining quantum physics to a hamster. We got back in the elevator. As the doors closed, blocking out the sight of Tiffany and her preheated oven, I pulled out my phone. My hand hovered over Marcus's contact. Marcus Stone, the CEO, the big boss, the guy who built this company from a garage in Akron. He wasn't a tech guy, he was a logistics guy. A truck driver turned tycoon. He respected grit. He respected me, or at least I thought he did, until he let his VP hire a family member to run the flagship project. Maybe he didn't know. Maybe Brad spun him a story. I looked at the time on my phone. 10:28 p.m. The crash would happen at roughly 10:38 p.m. I typed. My thumbs moved with the precision of a sniper. To Marcus Stone, CEO message. The launch fails in 10 minutes. Good luck, I hit send. The elevator dinged at the lobby. The night concierge, a sweet lady named Gladys, waved at me. I didn't wave back, I just stared at my phone. 3 dots appeared instantly. Then the reply buzz. From Marcus Stone, CEO message, don't leave the building. I stopped in the middle of the marble floor. The revolving door was 10 feet away. Freedom, unemployment, a bottle of wine and a long cry. But the phone buzzed again. From Marcus Stone, CEO message, I'm 2 mins out. Wait, I looked at Larry. Larry, I think I'm going to sit on the couch for a minute. Larry looked at his radio, then at me. Technically, you're trespassing now, Rebecca. Technically, Larry, I said, dropping my box on the expensive Italian leather sofa. I'm the only person in the zip code who knows where the bodies are buried. And in about 7 minutes, they're going to start floating to the surface. I sat down. I crossed my legs. I waited. The silence of the lobby was thick, heavy, and expensive. It felt like the calm before a very expensive storm. The lobby of the very core building is designed to intimidate. High ceilings, abstract art that looks like twisted metal, a silence so profound you can hear the fluorescent lights humming a dirge for your career. I sat on the leather couch, my box of belongings next to me like a tombstone. Larry stood by the security desk, shifting his weight from one foot to the other. He kept glancing at me, then at the elevator, then at the clock. 10:33 p.m., 5 minutes. You okay, Rebecca? Larry asked. You look intense. I'm counting, Larry, I said, tapping a rhythm on my knee. 1, 2, 3, just counting. It started subtly. A flicker on the giant monitor behind the reception desk, the one that displays the global shipping map. Usually, it's a beautiful web of green lines connecting continents, pulsing with live data. At 10:34 p.m., the green line stuttered. Gladys, the night receptionist, frowned. She tapped her keyboard. That's weird, she muttered. My email just froze. I didn't say anything. I knew exactly why her email froze. Exchange Server shares a backend storage cluster with the logistics database. It's a flaw I pointed out 3 years ago. Brad said fixing it was too expensive. Well, Brad, hope you like communicating via smoke signals. At 10:35 p.m., the phone started. It wasn't a ring. It was a unison shriek. The entire switchboard lit up like a Christmas tree in a house fire. Gladys jumped. What in the world? She picked up a line. Very core logistics. Hello. Hello, sir, I can't hear you, there's static. Hello? She looked at Larry, eyes wide. The lines are dead. It's just noise, IP crash, I whispered to myself. When the database locks up, the bandwidth gets strangled. The voice packets are the first to get thrown overboard to save the sinking ship. Then came the sound of running, muffled thuds coming from the stairwell. The elevators were too slow for panic. Someone was sprinting down 20 floors. The stairwell door burst open. It was a junior dev named Kevin. Nice kid, heavy breather. He looked like he'd seen a ghost eating his hard drive. Larry, he screamed, ignoring the fact that he was in the lobby. Larry, is Rebecca still here? I didn't move, I just watched. Larry pointed at me. Kevin ran over, sweating through his Game of Thrones t-shirt. Rebecca, oh God, it's gone, it's all gone. What's gone, Kevin? I asked, checking my nails. They needed a trim. The staging environment, it just collapsed. Tiffany. She hit the migration script and everything turned red. The backups aren't mounting. The master nodes are rejecting the keys. It's eating itself. Sounds like a permissions cascade, I said calmly. Did someone disable the safety interlocks? Kevin's face went pale, she said. She said they were slowing her down. Imagine that, I said. You have to come up, Kevin pleaded. Brad is screaming at it. Tiffany is crying in the server room. Asian markets are opening in 20 minutes. If we're offline, we lose about $400,000 a minute, I finished for him. Please, Kevin said. I can't, Kevin, I was fired. I'm a security risk. Larry, am I allowed to touch company equipment? Larry shook his head vigorously. Strict orders. Escort off premises immediately. See, I shrugged. My hands are tied. And my severance package didn't include tech support. Suddenly, revolving doors spun. A gust of cold night air hit the lobby, bringing with it the smell of rain and expensive cologne. Marcus Stone walked in. He didn't look like the billionaire CEO on the magazine covers. His tie was loosened, his top button undone. He was holding his phone like a weapon. He ignored the screaming phones. He ignored Kevin hyperventilating. He walked straight to the couch. He looked at me. I looked at him. You knew, he said. His voice was gravel. I predicted, I corrected. There's a difference. One is magic, the other is 9 years of reading the logs you guys ignore. How bad? Catastrophic, I said. Tiffany just poured a gallon of water into a grease fire. Marcus rubbed his face. He looked 10 years older than he had this morning. Can you fix it? I stood up. I picked up my box. That depends, Marcus. Are we talking about the servers? Or the glitch that caused them? The glitch, he asked. The glitch named Brad, I said. The virus named Tiffany. The silence in the lobby returned, heavier this time. Even the phones seemed to pause to listen. Walk with me, Marcus said. He didn't wait for an answer. He turned toward the private executive elevator. I looked at Kevin. Don't worry, Kev. I'm going to see the wizard. I followed Marcus. The ascent began. But this time, I wasn't going to the execution. I was the executioner. The executive elevator is different. It doesn't hum, it glides. It has real wood paneling and smells like vanilla and power. Marcus stood with his back to the corner, watching the floor numbers climb. He wasn't looking at me. He was watching the digital display like it was a ticking bomb timer. You texted me 10 minutes, Marcus said, breaking the silence. You were off by 30 seconds. I didn't account for the lag in the lobby Wi-Fi, I replied dryly. My bad. Brad told me you were burnt out, he said, turning to face me. Said you were resisting the new architecture. He said you were legacy dead weight. Brad thinks cloud computing means he can vape in the server room, I said. I reached into my purse and pulled out a small, battered moleskine notebook. It was stained with coffee and held together by a rubber band. I'm not burnt out, Marcus. I'm the only one who bothered to read the manual. The elevator doors opened onto the executive floor. Chaos was audible even here, muted by thick glass walls. People were running down the halls with laptops. A printer was making a sound like a dying goose. Marcus ushered me into his office, a glass box overlooking the city. He slammed the door, cutting off the noise. What do you know that they don't? He asked. Everything that works, I said. I tossed the notebook onto his mahogany desk. It landed with a heavy thud. What is this? That is the Onyx risk assessment I tried to present to Brad 3 weeks ago. He said he used the meeting time to talk about synergistic branding for the loading docks. Marcus opened the book. His eyes scanned the pages. My handwriting is chicken scratch, coded shorthand, brutal. Page 4, I directed. Estimated failure point, load balancing. Cause, Nepotism hired disabling safety protocols to improve UI latency. Result, total cascade failure of the SQL cluster. Marcus flipped to page 4. He read it. He looked up. His face was unreadable. You predicted Tiffany would disable the safeties. I predicted an untrained user with admin privileges would choose speed over stability, I said. Tiffany was just the variable in the equation. It could have been a trained monkey, honestly. The result would be the same. He closed the book. The system is down, Rebecca. The dashboard is black. The Asian distribution centers are pinging us and getting 404 errors. You have trucks sitting at docks in Shanghai with no routing data. The drivers are idling. The perishables are perishing. I know, I said. I built the routing tables. I know exactly what happens when they go dark. The frozen goods thaw in 4 hours. The pharmaceuticals, 2 hours before temperature variance flags them as waste. You're looking at about $50 million in spoiled inventory by sunrise. Marcus walked to the window. He looked out at the city lights. Brad said Tiffany was a prodigy. He showed me her credentials. He showed you a certificate from a website that also sells ordained minister licenses, I said. Marcus, you built this company on logistics. You know that if you put diesel in a gasoline engine, it dies. You let Brad pour sugar in the tank because he's your wife's cousin. He stiffened. That's a low blow. I'm unemployed, I said. I don't have to be polite anymore. I have to be right. and right now, I'm the only person in this building who knows how to flush the fuel lines. He turned back to me. Fix it. No, I'll double your salary. No, triple and a bonus. Whatever you want, I laughed. It was a rusty sound. Marcus, you don't get it. This isn't about money. You let them humiliate me. You let them walk me out like a criminal because I was too slow. You let a child play with a loaded gun because she had the right last name. What do you want? He asked. Desperation was leaking through now. I looked at the clock on his wall. 10:45 p.m. I want the gun, I said, and I want the people who gave it to her gone. You want me to fire Brad and Tiffany, I added publicly tonight before I type a single line of code. Brad is the VP of operations. I can't just then buy a lot of ice. I cut him off because those trucks in Shanghai are getting warm. Marcus stared at me. He was calculating. He was a businessman. He was weighing the cost of a lawsuit from Brad against the cost of the entire company imploding. I need access, I said. Total root access. No oversight, no agile meetings, and I need them out of the building. Now, he looked at his phone. Another alert. Stock value pre-market dip warning. Okay, Marcus whispered. I didn't hear you, I said. Okay, he shouted. Do it, fix it. I'll handle Brad and Tiffany, her too, just save the launch. Picked up my notebook. Get me a terminal. And get me some coffee that doesn't taste like ass. Marcus moved fast when he had to. He grabbed his desk phone. The landline was the only thing still working reliably and barked an order to security. Code red, executive override. Restore credentials for user ID, rmiller01. Authorization code, Alpha Zulu 9. He hung up and looked at me. You're live. Not yet, I said, standing my ground. I need the room. What room? The war room, the main server hub, and I need it empty. I don't work with an audience, especially not an audience that thinks Control-Alt-Delete is a hacking tool. Fine, Marcus said. Let's go. We left his office. The hallway was a scene from a disaster movie. People were huddled in groups, whispering. Some were crying. The smell of fear was stronger now, acrid and sharp. We reached the double doors of the IT command center. Through the glass, I could see them. Brad was red-faced, screaming at a wall of monitors that were all displaying critical error messages. He was flailing his arms, looking for someone to blame. Tiffany was sitting in the corner, holding her knees, sobbing into her girl boss hoodie. The rest of the team, Kevin, Sarah, the other devs, were standing back, terrified to touch anything lest they be blamed for the crater. Marcus pushed the doors open. Air conditioning in the server room is kept at crisp 68 degrees, but it felt like an oven in there. Brad, Marcus's voice boomed. Brad spun around. Relief washed over his face when he saw the CEO, then curdled into confusion when he saw me. Marcus, thank God, we've been hacked. It's a cyber attack. I was just telling the team, this has Russian signature written all over it. And look, he pointed a shaking finger at me. Why is she here? I had her removed. She's here because you're an idiot, Brad, Marcus said. His voice was deadly quiet. The room went silent. The only sound was the whir of the cooling fans, working overtime to cool down processors that were locked in infinite loops. Excuse me? Brad sputtered. You're relieved of command, Marcus said. Get out. Marcus, you can't be serious. This is a crisis. We need leadership. We need a surgeon, Marcus said. You're a butcher. He turned to Tiffany. You too. Out. Tiffany looked up, mascara running down her cheeks. But Uncle Brad said I could fix it. I just need to reboot the, if you touch one more button. I stepped forward, my voice cutting through the air like a serrated knife. I will personally make sure you never work with anything more complex than a toaster for the rest of your life. Tiffany shrank back. This is insane, Brad yelled. You're trusting her? The one we just fired for incompetence. I fired her because you told me she was slow, Marcus said. Turns out she wasn't slow. She was careful. There's a difference. Now, get out before I have Larry drag you out. Brad looked at Marcus, then at me. He saw the notebook in my hand. He saw the look in my eyes. He realized, perhaps for the first time, that his MBA buzzwords had no power here. This was the engine room, and he was just a passenger. You'll hear from my lawyer, Brad spat, and you'll hear from the shareholders, Marcus countered. Go. Brad stormed out, grabbing Tiffany by the arm. She was still wailing about her reputation. The door swung shut behind them. I looked at the team. Kevin, Sarah, Mike, they looked like hostages who had just been liberated. All right, I said, dropping my purse on the nearest desk. Show's over. Kevin, get me a terminal. Sarah, kill the external gateway. We're going dark for 5 minutes. Dark? Sarah asked, trembling. If we go dark, the tracking API fails. It's already failed, Sarah said, rolling up my sleeves. We need to stop the bleeding before we can stitch the wound. Cut it. Sarah nodded and typed furiously. I sat down at the main console, the one Tiffany had abandoned. It was still warm. I pulled a disinfectant wipe from my pocket. I always carry them. Keyboards are gross, and wiped the keys. Marcus, I said, not looking back, you might want to cover your ears. I'm about to violate about 14 corporate policies to bypass the lock. Just fix it, Marcus said from the doorway. I cracked my knuckles. I lit a cigarette. You can't smoke in here. Kevin squeaked. The halon system. Disable the smoke detectors, Kevin, I said, taking a drag. Daddy's home. The screen was a wall of red text. Fatal exception. Segmentation fault. God has left the chat. Okay, the last one was in my head, but it might as well have been there. Tiffany had managed to do something impressive. She had forced a multi-threaded database into a single-thread execution queue. Imagine trying to force the entire population of New York City through a single revolving door at the same time. That's what she did to our data. Okay, listen up, I barked, ash falling onto the desk. We're doing a hot swap on the kernel. Kevin, I need you to mirror the transaction logs to the sandbox. Don't try to parse them, just raw copy. Go. On it, Kevin said, typing so fast his fingers blurred. Sarah, I need you to manually lock the Asian distribution nodes. Send a system maintenance flag. It's a lie, but it buys us 10 minutes before they start calling the embassy. Flag sent, Sarah said. Her voice was steadying. She trusted me. I turned my attention to the core. The database was thrashing, writing, and rewriting the same corrupted blocks. I had to kill the brain to save the body. Open the command terminal. The black screen with the white cursor, my old friend. Sudo kill -9-1 whoa, Mike said from behind me. You're killing the root process, that's suicide. It's a defibrillator, I muttered. Clear, I hit enter. The screens went black, all of them. The hum of the servers dropped in pitch as the fans spun down. The room fell into a terrifying silence. Did we just delete the company? Kevin asked, his voice high. Wait for it, I said, taking a long drag. 3 seconds, 4 seconds. Come on, you piece of junk, I whispered. I wrote you better than this. Suddenly, a single line of green text appeared on the main screen. System reboot initiated. Checking integrity. Legacy protocol found. Rebecca is paranoid v2.0. What is that? Marcus asked, stepping closer. That, I said, pointing at the screen with my cigarette, is the bloat Brad wanted to get rid of. It's a ghost image of the system I stash in a hidden partition every 6 hours. It's slow to create, which is why the system lags sometimes. But it's immutable. You backed up the whole architecture. I backed up the soul of the machine, I said. Tiffany couldn't delete it because she didn't know how to look for hidden partitions in a Linux environment. She's a Windows girl. The screen began to scroll faster, green text cascading like a waterfall. Restoring tables, 10% restoring tables, 40% restoring tables, 85% Kevin, get ready to reopen the gateway on my mark, I said. When this hits 100%, we're going to have a tidal wave of pending requests. Brace the load balancer. Ready, Kevin said, restore complete. System online, now, I yelled. Kevin hit the key. The screens lit up. The map of the world flickered back to life. The red lines turned yellow, then green. Graph showing pending orders spiked vertically, then leveled off as the system chewed through the backlog. The room exhaled. It was a collective physical release of tension. We're stable, Sarah said, sounding like she might cry. Pings are returning normal. Latency is better than before. Because I flushed the cache while I was down there, I said, crushing my cigarette into an empty soda can, like unclogging a toilet. Sometimes you gotta get your hands dirty. I spun the chair around to face Marcus. He was staring at the screen, mouth slightly open. You saved it, he said. I didn't save it, I corrected. I just restored the factory settings. The settings I designed, the trucks, he asked. Getting their data now, I said. Shanghai is loading. You lost maybe 10 minutes of operational time and a little bit of dignity. Marcus looked at me. Rebecca, I said. Don't thank me. And don't offer me a raise yet. Not done? What do you mean? The system is fixed, I said, standing up. But the company is still broken. We need to talk about the glitch that caused this. And I don't mean the code. I grabbed my purse. Where are you going? Kevin asked. To the boardroom, I said. I assume you're calling an emergency meeting, Marcus. Marcus nodded slowly. Yes, I am. Good, I said, because I have some conditions for my continued employment. And they involve a lot of paperwork. Adrenaline crash after a system restore is a physical thing. My hands started to shake, just a little. I hid them in my pockets. We walked to the boardroom on the top floor. This wasn't the glass box office. This was the long table where they decided who lived and who died. Brad was waiting in the hallway. He hadn't left. Of course he hadn't. Cockroaches don't leave just because you turn the lights on. They just scramble for a new shadow. Tiffany was with him, fixing her makeup in her phone camera. Marcus, Brad stepped forward, his tie straightened, his manager mode re-engaged. Look, I've been making calls. I have a team from Deloitte ready to come in and do a full audit. We can spin this as a planned stress test gone wrong. The market doesn't have to know about the outage. A planned stress test? I laughed. It echoed in the marble hallway. Brad, you don't stress test a live environment during a global launch. It's like testing airbags by driving into a wall with your family in the car. You're not an executive, Rebecca, Brad sneered. You don't understand the optics. I understand that the logs show a user named Tiffany Sparkle executed a drop table command because she thought the table was cluttered, I said. Is that the optic you want to present to the shareholders? Tiffany looked up. I didn't drop it, I just hid it. Honey, I said, leaning in close. She smelled like vanilla vape juice and delusion. In SQL, drop means delete. You didn't hide the furniture. You burned the house down. Marcus walked past them, pushing the heavy oak doors open. Inside, all of you, we sat, Marcus at the head. Brad and Tiffany on the left, me on the right. Alone. Explain, Marcus said. He didn't look at Brad, he looked at me. It's simple, I said. Vericore has a complex logistics stack. It's old, it's heavy, but it's robust. Relies on a series of checks and balances. Protocols I put in place to prevent data collisions. Brad called these bottlenecks. Tiffany called them bad vibes. They were slow. Tiffany protested. The interface took like 3 seconds to load. Those 3 seconds, I said, my voice low and dangerous, are the system verifying that the container going to Tokyo doesn't contain the radioactive isotopes meant for medical lab in Berlin. You disabled the verification. Tiffany blinked, but the loading bar was so fast. You traded safety for pretty animation, I said. I looked at Marcus. That's what happened. They gutted the structural beams because they didn't like the wallpaper. And when the roof caved in, they blamed the architect. Brad slammed his hand on the table. This is technical mumbo-jumbo, Marcus. She's trying to confuse you. The fact is, the system failed under her architecture. The system failed, I said, because you fired the mechanic and let a toddler drive the bus. Marcus finally looked at Brad. Did you know she was disabling the protocols? I authorized a streamlining of the UX, Brad stammered. I didn't know the specifics. You're the VP of operations, Marcus said. It is literally your job to know the specifics. I rely on my team. You fired your team, Marcus said. You fired Rebecca, tonight, without consulting me. I was showing initiative. We're showing nepotism, Marcus said. He sounded tired. Rebecca, what's the damage? Data is restored, I said, but the trust, that's gone. The logs are there. Anyone with audit access can see what happened. If we lie about this and the SEC finds out we knowingly let an unqualified intern run the mainframe, that's prison time, Marcus, for you. The room went dead silent. Prison? Tiffany squeaked. Corporate negligence, I said. Fraud. Take your pick. Marcus closed his eyes. He was seeing the headlines. What do we do? He asked me. Not Brad, me. We tell the truth, I said. Internally, at least. We document the incident. We report the remediation. And we remove the root cause. I looked at Brad. The root cause, I repeated. We can handle this quietly, Marcus said, leaning forward. Brad takes a sabbatical. Tiffany goes back to school. We issue a press release about a minor hardware malfunction. I sat back in the leather chair. It was comfortable, too comfortable. It was the kind of chair that made you forget what it was like to stand on concrete for 12 hours. No, I said, Rebecca, be reasonable. Brad has been with me for 15 years. His wife is my wife's sister. I don't care if his wife is the Pope, I said. If he stays, I go. And if I go, the system goes with me. You wouldn't, Brad challenged. You need this job. You're 45, Rebecca. Is going to hire a legacy architect in this market. I smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. Brad, in the last hour, I've had 3 recruiters hit me up on LinkedIn because the rumor mill is already churning. But that's not the point. The point is, I know where the trap doors are. I built them. You keep me and I keep them shut. You lose me and, well, things tend to break when I'm not around to oil them, as we just saw. Marcus looked at Brad, saw the sweat on his forehead. He saw the incompetence radiating off him like heat lines on a highway. And Tiffany? Marcus asked. She's a liability, I said. She has admin access she doesn't understand. She has to go. Completely. NDA signed, laptop wiped, badge melted. This is unfair. Tiffany cried. I was just trying to innovate. Innovate on your own time, I said. This is $1 billion supply chain, not a sandbox. Pulled a folded piece of paper from my pocket. It wasn't a contract. It was a napkin I'd written on in the lobby while waiting for the crash. Here are my terms, I said, sliding it across the polished wood. Marcus picked it up. He read it. 1. Immediate reinstatement of Rebecca Miller as CTO, Chief Technical Officer. 2. Full autonomy over all hiring and firing within the IT division. 3. Immediate resignation of Brad Johnson and Tiffany Johnson. 4. A public acknowledgement to the internal staff of the error. 5. Double the salary and a designated smoking area on the roof. Marcus looked up. CTO, that's a board-level appointment. You have a board meeting in the morning, I said. I suggest you add it to the agenda, or I can present my own agenda item, why the shipping containers stopped moving. You're blackmailing me, Marcus said, but there was no anger in his voice, just resignation. He knew I was right, knew he needed a mechanic, not a mascot. I'm negotiating, I said. That's what executives do, right? Leverage. Marcus looked at Brad. I'm sorry, Brad, Marcus. Brad stood up. You can't let her dictate terms. She's basically a janitor. She's the janitor who just cleaned up your mess, Marcus said. Draft your resignation, effective immediately. Brad turned purple. He looked like he was going to explode. He pointed a finger at me. You miserable, careful, he said, lighting another cigarette. I knew I wasn't allowed to smoke in the boardroom. I dared him to stop me. You don't want to burn bridges. I might be the only one who can give you a reference for your next job, assuming you want to work in. I don't know, dear entry. Brad grabbed his jacket and stormed out. Tiffany followed, looking at her phone, probably deleting her day in the life video. I looked at Marcus. Do we have a deal? He looked at the napkin, looked at the smoke curling up from my cigarette. Welcome back, Rebecca, he said. The emergency board meeting at 9 a.m. was a sterile affair. Men in gray suits sat around the table, drinking sparkling water and looking concerned. Marcus sat at the head. I sat at his right hand. I wasn't wearing a suit. I was wearing my hoodie and jeans. I didn't care. I was the one holding the keys. The incident last night has been contained, Marcus told them, thanks to the quick action of our new CTO, Rebecca Miller. He gestured to me. The heads turned. They didn't see a middle-aged woman with coffee stains on her sleeve. They saw the firewall. They saw the insurance policy. Miss Miller, the chairman of the board, said, "Can you assure us this won't happen again?" "I can assure you," I said, my voice raspy from a night of chain smoking and coding, "that as long as I'm running the architecture, nobody touches the core without my fingerprint, moving back to a stability-first model. No more vibes, just math." They nodded. They liked math. Math made money, and the personnel issues, the chairman asked. Resolved, Marcus said quickly. We've restructured the leadership. Restructured. That's a nice word for threw the trash out. I walked out of that meeting with a new title, a salary that looked like a phone number, and a key card that opened every door in the building. I went back down to the server room. The team was there. Kevin, Sarah, Mike, they were working quietly. The panic was gone. The hum was back, that steady, rhythmic drone of a healthy data center. It's a sound better than any symphony. Hey boss, Kevin said. I removed the girl boss stickers from the monitor. Used goo gone. Good work, Kevin, I said. Now patch the Exchange server. Properly this time. I walked to my office, my real office. I closed the door. I sat in my chair. The one with the busted lumbar support. Buy a new one tomorrow, Herman Miller, the expensive kind. I pulled up the logs one last time. Everything was green. The world was moving. Trucks were rolling. Ships were sailing. And nobody knew that for 10 minutes, the entire global economy had held its breath because a 22-year-old wanted to make a TikTok. I opened my desk drawer. I pushed aside the stress grenade. I pulled out a small bottle of bourbon I kept for emergencies. This wasn't an emergency. This was a celebration. I poured a shot into my world's okayest coder mug. I put on my headphones. I didn't play music. I opened YouTube and found a video, Danny DeVito eating an egg 10-hour loop. Don't ask me why. It just centers me, the absurdity of it, the grime, the reality. I took a sip. It burned. It felt good. The system was running. The parasites were gone, and I was still here. Too slow, I whispered to the empty room, raising my mug to the screen. I watched the loading bar of my life hit 100%. We're all healed. Big thanks, you legends of the old office days. Subscribe to keep the switch-flicking chaos alive. Your ex-boss is shaking in their loafers.